And today I have the pleasure to conduct this conversation with the French stage director Vincent Huguet, alongside the Brazilian singer and musicologist Ligiana Costa. Vincent Huguet is a stage director and worked alongside Patrice Chéreau from 2009 to 2013 on Le Visage et le Corps at the Louvre, right?
Yes.
La Nuit avant les forêts by Marie Coltès, Rêve d'automne by John Foss, and Strauss Electra at Festival d'Aix-en-Provence, and in which he was also both assistant director and dramaturg. He directed the revivals of Electra in Milan, New York, Helsinki, Berlin, and Barcelona. He has also worked with Luc Bondy, Peter Sellars, and Ivo van Hove. He debuted as an opera stage director in 2012 with the Livres Like Me at Montpellier Opera. And since then, he directed many new productions, such as Purcell's Dido and Eneas at Festival d'Aix-en-Provence, Die Frauen Schatten by Strauss at Vienna Staatsoper, and Massenet's Manon at Opéra National de Paris. He was involved in and staged many original creations, such as the world premiere production of the opera Conte de la Lune vague après la pluie by Xavier Daillet. I'm not sure about the pronunciation.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Oh, wonderful. To Be or Not to Be, Le Voyage de Don Quixote, Trois Femmes, and Ódio Marítimo at Fundação Gulbenkian. In December 2020, he returned to Fundação Calouste Gulbenkian, where he had also directed Gounod's Romeo and Juliet to direct Poulenc's La Voix Humaine. So I'll start the conversation talking about the latter, which was performed by the soprano Marina Viotti and had the musical direction of Lorenzo Viotti. For those who did not have the opportunity to watch the video, in this production, Poulenc's opera was part of a longer show composed by other 6 musical pieces Overture to My Fair Lady, 3 French songs in this order, Je te veux by Eric Satie, Mon Dieu and Padam, 2 songs from Edith Piaf's repertoire, Poulenc's La Voix Humaine, Poulenc's Salve Regina, and Charlie Chaplin's Smile. But those works are not merely independent pieces of a concert with a staged opera in the middle. As I see it, together these parts compose a new original music drama or a new opera, I would say, called La Voix Humaine. So to start the conversation, I'll point some aspects of the dramaturgy and staging that drew my attention. The first thing is that the main character is portrayed as a singer, right? The audience watches her show or part of it before the call-in episode, the Cocteau Poulenc part of the story. And in this show, she sings those 3 songs I have already mentioned, whose lyrics are in different ways related to La Voix libretto, La Voix libretto. Another aspect is Another aspect is the place the action is set. After the 3 songs, the backstage crew brings into dressing room mirrors and a divan sofa and set in front stage. It is in this place that looks like a theater dressing room with the orchestra behind that Poulenc's opera happens. So the woman is not glued to the telephone for 2 or 3 days before it starts ringing the telephone. As the libretto suggests, she comes to this place, bringing a big flower bouquet in her hands that she was possibly given after her show. The third aspect is naturally the closing of the story, when the audience here and the web spectators can actually watch the Gulbenkian chorus singing Poulenc's Salve Regina, while the woman holding a man's coat puts herself together little by little. And to finish these initial notes, I promise, the last thing that caught my attention was that after Poulenc's Salve Regina, the performer sings Chaplin's Smile, and at one point during her singing, she leaves the scenery area and moves toward the conductor. So, before we start talking about your staging, I would like to ask you two questions. What is the Cocteau's La Voix Humaine play about in your point of view, and what are the most important layers, colors, ideas, also eventually problems that Poulenc's music bring to the libretto?
Yeah. Livia, obrigadissimo, because when you're stage directors, maybe most of the time you have the impression that nobody understood what you wanted to do, and like because we didn't speak, you and me, about what I wanted to do. Now I can see that it was very, I don't know, readable and really clear, and it makes me very happy. That's the first thing. No, I think the Cocteau play, has a great fascination. And for example, I think that Pedro Almodovar just did a film about it that I didn't have the chance to see yet because it was not in France, but I think it was presented in La Mostra in Venice. But in the old film of Almodovar, The Law of the Desire, there's already something about La Voix Humaine, and it's really funny because of course it's staged in a crazy way and everything. I think the fascination of that piece, of course, and the great originality is that you can hear the voice of the man. And so that's the thing, because we have to imagine what he says. And I think it was a quite simple but also very powerful idea that was very Cocteau-like, which was that it would be just about her. So somehow it makes her even more like a kind of dramatic heroine, like Cocteau was fond of, and very kind of Hollywood tragic heroine, but because you will never hear what he says to her. And sometimes you can imagine, of course, because she answers. But sometimes, I mean, if you would, that would be really great at sometimes with an audience to test and to say, to just, do a part of it and say, what do you think it just said, for her to answer that? And I'm sure that we would have like 10 or 20 or 30 different answers, because everybody can imagine what he says. Yeah. So, of course, as a spectator, I never saw the play. I saw the opera several times, and I think so. Your imagination can also start to just go its own way and say, what is it about, as you asked. And at the beginning I was thinking it was more about just it's the end of a love story, so it's very sad and somehow it can be very pathetic as well. But then staging it in Lisbon, I discovered that it was not only that, or if it's that, it's much more complicated, much more interesting, and much more rich. Because in fact, I think the opera is like 43 minutes, something, depending the tempo. And you think that you have 43 minutes to try to convince the man you love, the man of your life, to stay with you and not to leave you. And I think it's more about that. That means that when it starts, everything is still possible. And I think that if you face the play or the opera that way, it's very different. And it's what I wanted to do. It's what I proposed to Lorenzo and to Marina Viotti, to say it's not over, because at the beginning, it seems that she's very calm and it's really clear that she accepts somehow that this guy is leaving. But if it's like that, I mean, it's not interesting for the stage, because you say, okay, it will be now 40 minutes about being sad because that's the end of a great love story. And then if you really go inside, both in the text of Jean Cocteau and of course, the new layer added by Francis Poulenc, you can feel so different colors, so different tempi, so different temperatures, that sometimes she pretends that she's calm. Sometimes she's very pathetic. Sometimes she's she wants him to feel guilty. She wants him to be afraid because she could commit suicide. And so she tries, I think, everything. And so that's why I think the piece finally is so interesting, is that would be the challenge. You have 40 minutes, and what do you do to try to make this guy to change his mind and to stay with you?
Yeah, I see. So this sequence of works was a kind of collaboration. How did you come up with this idea? You worked with Marina and Lorenzo.
Yes.
How was?
The thing is that at the beginning we were supposed to do Bluebird Castle, the Bartók opera. And then the Gulbenkian Foundation called me in May and said we have to cancel because of Corona. And I tell the story because it can be interesting. I said, okay, you can cancel, but please, let's think about another piece. Maybe we should cancel Bluebird, but let's choose something that we can do with the Corona and everything. And they say, okay, what do you propose? And I say, I have a perfect piece. She's alone. She's just with a telephone. It's a perfect, image of what lockdown is about. I mean, she's kind of totally isolated. And let's do that. And then with Lorenzo, it was a long time that we wanted to do a Poulenc together. We dreamed to do Les Dialogues des Carmélites together. And so that's a composer, is a composer we love. Same for Marina. And then my idea was that at the beginning, I was very interested by the creation of the opera, by Poulenc himself, of course, and Denise Duval. Denise Duval was a French singer, and she was very important in the Poulenc story because she also created the role of Blanche in Les Dialogues des Carmélites. And of course, she created La Voix Humaine, but it's a terrible story, like in a film, because in fact, she created the role everywhere where La Voix Humaine was created in the world. And once, I think it was in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, in the middle of a performance, she suddenly lost her voice. And totally from one second to another one, she totally lost her voice. And that was the end of her career. And then she came back and she settled down in Switzerland and she stopped everything. And she has been this incredible, star with Poulenc. And suddenly she was just this small woman in Switzerland, a pensioned woman. And so, of course, I was really fascinated by her destiny, which was kind of incredible. And also by the fact that when Poulenc was looking for the ideal singer to perform this very difficult role, because it's very difficult to sing, someone said to him, you will never find what you look for in the lyric singers. And you should go to Les Folies Bergères. Les Folies Bergères is a very famous French musical, like l'Olympia or places like that. But so more for pop music, if I can say, variété musical. And so he went to the Folies Bergères and he met Denise Duval. She was singing at Les Folies Bergères. And so after that, I was thinking, that's great that she's not like a lyric singer. And another story as well is that Denise Duval herself said that wherever she created La Voix Humaine, so in those years, she always noticed that during the first 20 minutes, people were in the audience were not so interested in what happening on stage. Because if you think about it, the libretto compared to a classic opera where, in 5 minutes, you know exactly who is who, what he wants, with whom he will have, fun, he wants to kill, everything, kind of, cliche of what we say, a presentation. You don't really know with La Voix Humaine. And she said, so I always felt that the people, the first 20 minutes were kind of annoyed or embarrassed or bored. Then they get into it. And at the end, they were like that, thrilled. And I was thinking it's a pity because the piece is 43 minutes. So if you lose like half of it because the people are not able to get into the piece, it's a pity. And I was thinking, why? Maybe because they don't know who this woman is. And so the time you need to say, okay, maybe she's that, or just to try to portray who's that lady is. Because if I see someone very unhappy, like sitting next to me in the train or whatever, maybe because I will feel some compassion because I'm a human being and sensitive. But of course, if I know her, I will be much more concerned and moved by what she said or what she's like experiencing in front of me. Yes. And so I was thinking it would be very interesting if when the human voice properly starts, we already know a little who that woman is. That's why I proposed to Lorenzo and Marina to do a prologue, something before, not so long, 3 songs, it's not long, but just for me to start, just to have the time to tell myself my story about who that woman is. And that's how came the idea that it could be the end of a show at a musical. And so she did exactly like Edith Piaf in l'Olympia or Denise Duval in Les Folies Bergères with this glossy red dress and everything. And she's that kind of diva somehow. And but during all the concert, she was just thinking about I should really finish quickly because he will call me at 10:30 and I want to be in my dressing room when he will call. And then so she runs at the end. Voilà. So that's why I proposed that idea, that kind of scenario to Lorenzo and Marina. And of course, it was not by chance, because first I knew that Lorenzo wanted also to add some. Lorenzo is also fascinated by all the music around. He knows everything. And also Marina is an incredible singer for Piaf. So she knows very well this repertoire. She can sing it in an incredible way, which is not always the case of the lyric singer. So together with that kind of first idea, we built the things together. And Lorenzo was in Paris, we did the first list, and then Marina proposed some other songs. And at the beginning we had like 8 or 9 songs, and at the end we had the 3 you mentioned. And yeah, that's how we built it. And then I wanted absolutely the choir to be there for several reasons. First, because I think that La Voix Humaine can be presented like a kind of passion in the religious sense, you know, like a kind of, not an oratorio, but a passion, like a Bach, Jean-Sebastian Bach passion, Entschuldigung, in Deutsch, you know. So that means with a kind of, you know, in the structure, that then there is a kind of a lamento, because, you know, the main character is suffering or died. And so, and also I love Poulenc music sacred music. And I love the Gulbenkian choir. So that makes a lot of reason to. And Lorenzo did an incredible work with them, because of course with all the rules we have now, it was difficult, but Gulbenkian is a very big place. So in the foyer, we finally found a solution. They were like 10 meters each from each other. And then Lorenzo had the idea of the final, of Smile, to do the final and to ask the orchestra to sing it, which was incredible.
Yeah, wonderful. In one of the messages we have exchanged, you mentioned that you wanted to portray her as a strong woman, right? And you mentioned that. Yeah. And I understood that this was something important in your staging of Massenet's Manon and also Dido. In your point of view, is there anything that connects these 3 female characters?
Yes, you're so right. Now that you say it, it seems to me obvious. Yes, because I mean, they are strong, but the stronger they are, the tougher somehow the people around are with them. Because, you know, Dido is a queen, and in that story, somehow Marina was also a kind of queen, a queen of the night or queen of the stage or whatever. And Manon as well is a kind of queen for not for a very long time, but she will become the queen of Paris. And I think that the people want queens, but then once they have queen, they just want to destroy them. And they want first to test if they are really strong enough. And that's why I think the people are so fascinated by the incredible, by the way, Netflix series now, The Crown, because it's really rare that the queen stays there so long. I mean, she's incredible, the Queen of England, but some, if not, like as soon as you have a queen, the people, like the men around, and like it's really difficult, I think, to not to become a queen, but to stay a queen. I think for a very long time. And yes, I think it's, for me, it's always like more interesting to find the strengths than to underline the fragility of those women, because I think that the operatic galaxy somehow is so somehow build on that. And you know, it's beautiful because at each time at the end, the beautiful soprano dies, and with men around and everything. And if you really look carefully at the music or at the libretto, most of the time it's not exactly what the composer or the librettist wanted to say. For example, that Dido, she doesn't die just because Eneas left her. There are many other reasons. Or like in La Voix Humaine, it's not written that she dies. She said, je t'aime, je t'aime, je t'aime. And that's why we did in the staging that she just hold the telephone that way. And so nobody applauds, because it was, of course, our obsession with Lorenzo. And then this choir arrives, and so she will go on. She will have another life. And at the end, she sings Smile, and she's, of course, she's sad, but, you know, she... Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, personally, it's what I'm interested in. I'm really looking for those things. And in my staging of Manon in Paris, some of the critics were so shocked because I mean she was killed by like by guns, by kind of, because I was thinking when I was studying, really like preparing the staging and reading the libretto and listening to the music, I was thinking, how can she die? She's so strong. How can she die just because she walked like 100 meters between Paris and Le Havre? I mean, it's not like she wouldn't die of that. And I think she's too strong, and so they want to kill her for that. And anyway, it's the way I see them.
Okay, thank you. Ligiana.
Hi,
Hi, why not?
Donc, I'd like first of all to congratulate you. I really like your staging of La Voix Humaine.
Obrigado.
I'm a little bit interested, as Livia as well, about your strong woman character, the idea of strong woman you have.
Yeah.
Michal Grover, in that beautiful text about La Voix Humaine, she says that La Voix Humaine is an opera-length death song. So, as the traditional operas always end with a death aria, this is a whole opera as a death aria.
Exactly.
With, for me, a very ordinary character. For me, also seeing all the movies that we have made with this extraordinary text, Sofia Loren made it, Anna Magnani, always we see her always as a very ordinary woman, just as we women are left by men, usually changed by someone younger. And I'm okay if she's an ordinary woman as well, because I think that she has this beautiful moment of turning point, this peripetia, when she realizes that he is lying, and then she completely changes. In Sophia's Loren version, she starts talking Napolitan when she realizes, like, I fuck up, I'm gonna talk my dialect. So I like this ordinary woman, housewife, but I'd like to understand, but I like also your idea to bring her a little bit more like a diva. It's interesting and it's beautiful when you place her as a diva, because then we also, as you said before, we have this dialogue with her before. But I would like to understand more your use of this sacred music at the end, because that was, I must say, the only moment I was like, oh my God, Catholicism, why? Is she feeling guilty because of her madness? The madness is also a sacred moment for women. Like Le Taratolate, it's also a very important moment for us children. So to understand why the specific...
Yes, the Salve Regina,
Specifically, especially because Salve Regina is like for
Marie.
And why she, and also the smile at the end that I was telling Livia, I have a little trauma with this song. I don't know why. Maybe
which one? We smile. We smile.
Yeah, because I think my mother asked me to sing in a Christmas party or something like that. But I'd like to understand these two moments. What exactly you meant?
Alors, I can really speak about the Salve Regina, the smile a little less, because as I just said, it was Lorenzo's idea. So, and we said with Lorenzo, I will answer to you in the right order. For the Salve Regina, my concern was that, and it's also a question, it's funny, because when I was assisting Patrice Chéreau when we did Electra at the Aix-en-Provence festival, at the end of Electra, there was a huge scene, with the music is enormous, huge, really huge, and it's written on the score, she falls. And so Patrice someone said to one day in the rehearsal, someone said to Patrice, and when she dies at the end, what do you do? And he said, she doesn't die. It's not written that she dies, it's written that she falls. And so, like on purpose, like he did on his staging, that she was sitting on a bench with the two eyes wide open, because she was totally empty. But nevertheless, some journalists, some critics wrote in the article, at the end, when Electra collapses on the floor, which never happens on stage. So you have that kind of problem with at the end of La Voix Humaine, because of course the tension is so big and you are so much with this woman that at the end you and you want to clap like crazy at the end. And so I didn't want that, because I was thinking, if you do that, there is a kind of sacrificial way of ending the piece, because okay, she falls, the telephone falls, like nobody's here, beep, 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 end of the story. Okay, and she took a lot of pills and she drank and she commits suicide, which I think she doesn't do. My idea was more that, you know, when that happens to you, and maybe because we have the chance, and look nowadays, how I think, I don't know how it is in Brazil, but I guess it's not so close maybe than in France. But you know, in France, the people are getting insane because of being private, of museums, of theater, and of course we can sing on streaming, but they just need to be in a place together and to listen to music or to see a performance. And I wanted to express the fact that when that kind of thing happens to you, what is worse in your life than, like, you know, when you lose the person you love? I mean, whether it's someone of your family or the man or the woman you love. And I think that sometimes what can save us is precisely the beauty of, I would say, for me, even not of art, I would say just the beauty of the world. So that could be just a bird suddenly singing, you know, just at the window, at the moment where you say, okay, now my life is over, and, you know, everything is horrible, and I fucked up everything, and there's no future. And suddenly you hear that bird, and you say, what? Who sent to me that bird? I'm sure we all had this kind of experience with those, I mean, terrible weeks of lockdown, whatever your situation is. Like, I think all of us had some days this experience, and to stay in small flats or places where you don't want, and suddenly there is a ray of light, or there is this bird singing, or maybe your neighbor is knocking at the door and said, I have flowers for you, or I did a cake for you. I just wanted the kind of the beauty of the world suddenly, and that's why the choir was singing in the foyer. That means that nobody in the audience could see them. It was just very discreetly at the end of the Voix Humaine, when the music was loud, we were opening the doors, and, you know, the fantastic people of Gulbenkian choir were very discreetly coming in the foyer, and that music came from an echo. And in my mind, because the story takes place in a theater, like in the Folies Bergère or l'Olympia, she did the show, she ran to the dressing room, and, you know, because the conversation was 43 minutes, everybody in the meanwhile left the theater. And so suddenly, when you forgot, and everyone left the theater, and she's here, and she said, what will happen now? And suddenly, very far from the deepness of the theater, she hears this echo of a beautiful music. And then she say, wow, I will survive. And because the Salve Regina is quite long, so you see, it was not religious for me, it was about pure beauty. And also the fact that suddenly you're surrounded by, because love somehow isolates you a lot, because when you are in love, most of the time you are two, and so that means that you are just about, you're totally blind because of your pain and your obsession, which is the case with her. She's really very into it. And suddenly also you remember that other human beings are around, and somehow it makes you smile after a while. That was the idea. And because Lorenzo loved the idea with the religious thing and all that, then he said, because of what we were going through at that moment, he said we should also do the smile as a last consolation, and also as a gift for the audience, because everybody it was just before Christmas, you know, like everybody was, and the fact that it was the orchestra singing that a cappella, and you know, it was a kind, and then we said, maybe if we do that show again in another place, maybe we will not end with smile. It was really for Lisbon at that moment. Voilà. That's Ligiana, did I answer to you?
Yes. The only thing that I'm a little bit...
I was moved. Sorry. Sorry, go on.
I'm a little bit literal. Salve Regina is like hail. So,
I know.
And when I listened, I was like, oh my God, they are saying that Salve Regina to her, like she is the Regina. I mean,
I was not so,
literal. You were in the mood of the thing, and
exactly,
really
not on the text. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
That's why I was like, oh my God. Hey.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true.
I just wanted to say that I was moved when she left the set and walk behind the mirror.
Yeah, the mirror. Yeah.
For me, she was not the character anymore.
And she was Marina.
She was exactly singing to the audience. That time you must keep on trying. So
exactly.
It was.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was very clear for me. This moment was very interesting.
Yeah.
And Vincent, as you mentioned, Chéreau, I would like to ask you something about your experience with your whole experience with him and Electra. One of the things that was remarkable in this work is how he succeeded to portray the women characters.
Strong woman as well.
Yes, strong woman, and not how he got rid of the stereotype approaches that are commonly seen in other stagings. And he, and of course all the artists involved, was able to convey so many nuances from the libretto and the music, and depicted these characters in such a humanized way that I was wondering about how was it was important for you, if this work influenced your perception and approach of the women characters or not.
Yes, you're right. Probably, yeah, certainly, because you are totally right. The first impressions he had, he was very afraid of Electra at the beginning, not only about the story, but of the music, because it's like the first scene, it's like, 6 sopranos singing together, and one mezzo, but it's something crazy. It can make you crazy. And you don't know, if you listen to the disc, you don't know who sings, and it goes very, and they scream and everything. And so, yes, he was like, and the other very important things was that, he accepted also to stage Electra because he knew that Clytemnestra would be Waltraud Mayer. And Waltraud Mayer is old, and he's married in Wojciech, so they were really close. And of course, they had a very unique artistic and also human relationship together. And because it's true that the way Hofmannsthal and Strauss composed the role of Clytemnestra is really not without cliche. She's a kind sometimes of hysterical witch and old, and if you read everything which is written on the libretto, she's wearing a lot of jewels, and she's very superstitious and everything. And somehow his first desire was to give a new image of Clytemnestra, and to say, okay, maybe she's not a very ideal mother. It's a very dysfunctional family, but also she has some reasons. Because you know what? Something which is never said in the libretto, Agamemnon killed Iphigenia, the other girl, who is never mentioned in the Hofmannsthal version. But in the Trojan War, there is a problem. At some moment, there is no more wind, and the gods are angry and everything. And without telling Clytemnestra, Agamemnon sacrifices his daughter Iphigenie. That means she's absolutely furious against him. And Patrice was very concerned by the fact that she had also reasons to kill him when he comes back to Mycene.
Right.
And I think the fact that, I think maybe you are totally right by the fact that what I learned with Patrice, even if now I think that we are very far away somehow in the style, in the things I like. And for example, when I staged my first opera, L'Acmé, it was really cute because he came and visited me in Montpellier, but he came a Sunday. That means the only day where there was no rehearsal. And he looked at me like in the eyes, and he said to me, "You are really smart because you couldn't choose a piece I hate more than L'Acmé." And it's so far from everything I like. I would prefer to die instead of even listening to L'Acmé. And I say, okay, so I was right to do that. And but where you are totally right, Livia, it is that he had this. I don't know in the shows before, but for sure in Electra he was obsessed. in the fact to try to understand the reasons of each character.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a great school. And you're right that it's true that maybe I'm doing that, but also maybe it's true also that I'm more now, maybe it will change, but I'm more interested in looking for the reasons of the woman than for the man. It's true that when I did, for example, Dido and Eneas, I was not so interested in looking for the reasons Eneas has to leave, because it's clear. And I think there is less complexity, but the piece is like that. It's not me. I think Purcell was not so interested in Eneas. He has no aria. He has no, so, and I think it's yes, that was something great to learn and also because then when you work with a singer, it's much more interesting for the singers than to arrive and to say you are that type. No, it's together you try really to understand the reasons they have to act or to sing that way or that way. Then it makes all the process of the rehearsal like so thrilling, because that's also something you need the singer to explore that with him, because as a director there are some reasons I understand from what I read, what I see on this, but then the singer will also show me other reasons because he's singing, not me, and that's something really great. That's something I really love to discover with the singers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vincent. I'll change a little bit the subject, but actually not. It's not rare that the operatic works, the operas are programmed by the opera houses, worldwide opera houses, because white opera houses, because they are part of the canonic repertoire, because of its musical qualities. And in this case, it's the libretto and its pertinence are not so important, I would say. So considered, and it can be challenging and also very hard, can be a burden to the stage director sometimes to deal with the problematic with librettos that are sometimes that have contents like racist, misogynist, or classist, aspects, among other issues like that. So, what do you think about it? So, how do you see your role as a stage director in this situation?
I think that we have a lot to do, and that's interesting because I met the new intendant of the Paris Opera, Alexander Neff, 2 days ago about that, because now in Paris there is a big issue about that, which came more from the ballet, where it's like it has been a lot of things like cover of magazines and everything, because some dancers said that somehow nothing was really done for them, even like from very simple things like the makeup or the color of the costumes, until like more like biggest problem like what is written in the like some kind of racist cliche in some ballet. So there is a kind of issue about that. And I met the Paris Opera director because I just did this Manon now 1 year ago. And when the former director of the Paris Opera, Stéphane Lissner, offered me to do Manon, he said to me immediately that the singer would be Preti Yende. And so, of course, I was super happy because it was Preti Yende. But then I said to myself, okay, she's a black singer, and it's not each day that Manon is performed by a black singer. And then I looked in the archives, and I didn't really find another one. I'm sure in the United States or maybe in Brazil there was, but not so famous, and not with a lot of traces, because at least after quite long research on Google, I didn't find. And so I was thinking, okay, so it's an incredible chance, because having a black singer, I can tell that story another way, and I can tell something different, which means, but it's very complicated, because I think as soon as you go in that direction, it's very dangerous and very tricky, because sometimes the result can be totally the opposite of what you wanted to do. For example, I saw a Così fan tutte in Aix-en-Provence a few years ago, and it took place, in the colonial time. So that was in Africa, and it was an Italian colony, and so there was a kind of challenge to try to say that it's because of racism that the two girls, they don't recognize the two guys. And so at the origin, why not? It could be a good idea. But the ones on stage, I was sitting just next to Julia Bullock, you know, with this incredible singer, and she's very committed in all that. And Julia was feeling so bad, and I was feeling bad as well. And and for sure, the director was not racist, the opposite. But sometimes the result is, that means you have to do a lot. You have to do really a lot. And that's why I decided that the story of Manon could happen in the 20s in Paris, because the 20s are historically the first moment in the story of West Europe, where you have, for the first time, Black people on stage being applauded, the incredible icon of Josephine Baker, but also jazz men. And that's the very moment where Picasso and some other artists discover what they call at this time nègre art, art nègre. And, but they are totally crazy with that, saying that it's the most beautiful art on earth. And so it's a great inspiration for them and for the abstract painting. All those things. And all those things, I put them in the set, I put them in the costumes, but without saying, hey, I'm doing a Black Lives Matter production. Because if you say that, everything disappears. And to be honest, during the process with Preti Yende, I say that between you and me, you guys and me, I never said to her the way I'm thinking to you now. I never said that in the rehearsal. And so, I mean, all the presentation I did for all the choir, I said it's about Josephine Baker, about this very particular time in France, but I never said it's about a Black singer somehow.
Of course.
Yeah, but you know, it's very important to say. And I remember
that.
Yeah. One day, like between two rehearsals, Preti came back in the rehearsal room and she looked upset somehow. And I heard that she was telling, I just had an appointment with a journalist, a stupid journalist. And he asked to me, how is it to be a Black singer? And she said, I'm not a Black singer, I'm a singer. That's it, you know? And so you have to be very, very careful. So just to answer, to make a very long story short.
No, it's wonderful.
I think that as a director, you have a great responsibility about that. But for me, it's really not a question of being politically correct. It's just that as a director, if, for this example, I think is interesting, if for Manon, you have a Black singer, you have a chance to tell the story differently. But you have to be super careful and to build the thing. That's why I chose an actress to be Josephine Baker somehow, of course, a Black actress. And then also we had some dancers because we kept the ballet in Act 3. And for the dancers, I asked to have also some, you know, people being different, not all Black, but not all blonde and white. And you believe me or not, but that was the only thing I asked to the Paris Opera, to have Black dancers. I say the thing straight. And when I arrived to the audition, there were 100 dancers in the studio, and there was not one Black. The maximum was a girl. Her father was from Morocco. That was the maximum of diversity we had. And I say, what happened? I just asked for Black dancers. And they say, maybe it's because on the paper for the audition, it was written classical formation, like obliged or something like that. And I say, you do a new audition and you cut that line. And you said hip-hop or whatever, welcome. And let's see if those people dance or not. That's it. I don't care if they have a classical formation or not. Yeah. So, but I think it's very difficult. And now I was speaking with Lorenzo Viotti, and they canceled the Othello they wanted to do in Amsterdam. Because the question is, so do you hire a Black singer to do Othello or not? You know, and if yes, what do you do around him and everything? And that becomes very complicated. And I think that we will not have a lot of Othello in the following years, because somehow for you know, the opera houses and also for the artistic teams, I think it will be kind of difficult to choose what you want to do, because if you go if you start to justify yourself and to do something politically correct, it kills whatever you do. I mean, it's really something that you have to build very carefully.
Yeah,
but of course, it's a very big issue. But it's a chance to do a lot.
Ligiana.
Vincent, me and Livia, we have just created here in Brazil a group. Is it okay to hear me?
Yes, I think I hear the ocean. I don't know if you are just next to the ocean, because we hear like waves. Because I was thinking You were
Noisy.
in Ipanema or I don't know, or Sao Paulo.
Like this? Is it better?
It's the same, but it's okay. I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay.
But we hear waves as well.
Me and Livia just created a group here in Brazil. It's an informal group. We are only women studying opera, just women from many different fields in opera, singers, researchers. I'm a musicologist, some stage, and these problems of opera are one of the topics of our discussions. We have made a full discussion about these problematizations on opera, yeah, that's the same thing you were telling. And I was reading this Philip Kennicott, the critic. He was saying something very interesting about opera, is that opera is not a common entertainment, and that opera, something that he says, is a complex art form with its own language, and instead of thinking of an entertainment, it's more interesting to think it as a vast archive of emotional, historical, social, and theatrical data. So I really think like that as well. I don't want to see. I like every kind of staging. I like when Carmen wakes up and kills Don Jose. For me, it's okay. It's interesting. It's like a calendario. But at the same time, I'm okay if I see her dead, because this is part of human history.
Totally.
Our history is horrible.
Yeah.
Our history is horrible. We are like really the virus of this planet. So I don't think that putting everything okay on the stage makes our history okay. Our history is made of death, of feminism, of homophobia. We are that. So I would like to ask you this. Do you think that the public is waiting for us to solve the problem of our human history?
I think I think what you say, Ligiana, is very interesting. And that's why, for example, in the case of Manon, I did the end even worse than what it's written, because it's written that she dies by herself because she's exhausted. But for me, the real thing is that the society just murdered her. That's why I wanted, and I made 5 soldiers arriving on stage and killing her. And all the critics hated that. And okay, I'm fine with it, I think somehow that's what, I don't know exactly what we have to do or not, but for sure the people, the quote you said, I think, yes, it's a kind of, the opera, you're right, is not like a common entertainment. And being from south of France, I would even add, for me, it's more like the corrida sometimes. Because there is for me as a spectator, I never felt another kind of show which is so close between. So you were speaking about Carmen, by the way, it ends also in the arena. But what you feel sometimes, and as a director, maybe I hope you, Ligiana, Livia, you didn't feel that yet, but sometimes you can feel such a violence that you never feel in dance or theater, for example, when the director comes on stage to take a bow, I mean, when the people are screaming, or sometimes with a singer as well, by the way, but there is a violence that the audience never allows itself in other fields. And once I asked to someone sitting next to me and say, do you scream that way when you're going to see dance or theater? She said to me, of course not, but at the opera you have to. And I say, why? Is it
Why?
because it is because you pay your tickets? Maybe they are more expensive. Does it give you the right to scream on the people at the end? And I don't know, but for sure there is something about that. And sometimes as well, when a singer is in danger on stage because for musical problems or whatever, you can feel a tension. And sometimes you wonder if the people, they are not just waiting for her or him to fall. That's something really violent that you don't have for sure, not in theater, and not in and even if you look at the reviews, the critics, the violence of are never the same when it's about an exhibition, or sometimes about cinema, yes, but not about exhibition, plastic art or dance, never. So, but Ligiana, I don't know, I can just tell you my impressions. I think that, for example, when I think for me, what we have to do on stage can't be just like how do you say, copy and paste of what is on CNN. Because sometimes, you know, okay, for example, like let's say that before Corona, the biggest topic was about, you know, environment. I mean, how do you say environment? Yes, I mean, the planet is dying. Just after that, in Europe, at least, we had the problem of the refugees dying trying to go across the sea. And so at this time, for example, you had like a number of shows where systematically you had a huge screen with pictures of, you know, the boats of the refugees like dying in the sea. Bon. And for me, I mean, I'm fine if the people are happy to see that, but for me, they see that whatever screen they look at, they will find those pictures. And I think that our role, of course, is to work with those pictures, with those emotions, with those facts, but to digest them somehow, and sometimes to pull them. Maybe sometimes it's just a few centimeters, but just maybe to give the audience a possibility to maybe to understand them first, and then maybe, like with the Salve Regina, Ligiana, maybe to be able to how could I say, to accept them or just to face them. It's something I feel. And for example, when I did Dido and Eneas, I was totally traumatized because at that moment there was still the war in Syria, and I wrote a very, very long, issue in the newspaper about the fact that the woman from the Yazidi, you know, it was part of the Syria. It was horrible. They were all kidnapped, and then they became some sexual slaves. And the ones who succeeded in escaping to Lebanon, for example, once in Lebanon, they were also like, you know, kidnapped again and became prostitutes. I mean, it was hell on earth. And and this story stayed in my mind for days. I was like, horrified. It was everything I'm afraid of. I don't know, I was horrified. And then I added a prologue to Dido and Eneas. And when, you know, I found again the original story of Dido, I discovered that also she had to escape Tyre, the town where she was born, because, you know, she was normally, after her father, she was to be the queen, but the brother, of course, decided that it was not possible because she was a girl, and so he pushed her. He tried to put her in jail, and he became a queen instead of her. And she has to escape in a night with a boat, and she took what she can, and she escaped, and then she was lost in the sea, and finally one day she arrived in what she was to become Carthago. And then so on stage, I put those women, and at the beginning of the show was like 30 women of the choir, just with blanket and being kind of persecuted and arriving on stage, and that was, you know, part of the story. But of course, it was not a film about Yazidi women being chased by the how do you say, fanatics and everything. It was like somehow reframed, if I can say, in and so what I mean, Ligiana, is perhaps some people understood what it was about, and some other ones just felt that there were, like, you know, tragic story about those women. But I think that in my way, that if it's too clear that I'm speaking about the refugees, I think it loses the effect it can have of the catharsis, as we say in the Greek theater, where a kind of mystery should remain. Because if it's too clear that it's exactly what we speak about, I think it's like it's something which is which for me has no effect.
I see.
Yes.
Is
it better now? My sound?
Yes.
Yeah. I see. We still have. Yeah. No. No. Just that we have more questions, but we are running out of time. So.
We are running out of time.
Yeah. I'd like to open for questions, but Ligiana, go on if you.
While people are just preparing the questions, just to close this subject that I think it's never closable, because it's something so interesting, and we are all living this, and at the same time, I think that humanity is changing the look, and at the same time, all the identitarian movements are taking place, and sometimes violently. Here in Brazil, for example, we had this beautiful, we talked about that, a beautiful movie called Vazante, and it was all the Black movement was against this movie, because no Black people is talking in this movie, because the movie is on the colonial moment of Brazil, when no black talked, had no voice. And there is this beautiful moment in this movie when this slave, he's saying this long monologue in a language that nobody understands, not even the other blacks. So this poetry, this moment, this dramaturgy of this man talking and nobody understanding, for me, is so much more strong than if he talked and everybody understood. So I'm sad, because sometimes I think that we are taking off the big part, as you said, of the poetry, of the drama, of the other part that is the most important for us. So we can't be literal.
And also, and only Ligiana, I agree. And also, I would say also that, like, with all those questions around cancel culture, I think canceling is not interesting, because when you cancel, everything is remaining, but a bad thing which stay in your belly, somehow. And it's much better to say, okay, that's the way it was. We're happy that it's no more that way, but let's do it with something. And what echo it is interesting to keep for nowadays. But I mean, you can destroy all the statues and the castles and everything, but then that's our story as well. But in Brazil, I have to say that in Brazil, I felt that when I was in Brazil, I felt that in an incredible way, because you guys are living in a country where I think the link between past and present is very different compared to what we have in Europe. It's amazing. When you are in Ouro Preto, you can feel it was like, I don't know, I felt such a violence as well of the story and everything, it's... Anyway, that's another conversation. Sorry.
Another wonderful. So, João Pedro wants to ask a question.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Well, it's more like a comment than a question, and it's a follow-up to the issue raised by Ligiana and Livia of portraying the female character as a strong woman rather than as a victim.
Yes, exactly.
Well, this is just a previous comment. Of course, nowadays, I mean, the history of opera is full of female characters suffering and dying. So I guess a lot of directors really try to do that. And I really think at the same time that the question is not so much nowadays whether you try to portray the female character as a strong woman, but rather how you do it or how you try to do it.
Yeah.
So I felt your solution was very interesting in terms of portraying her right from the beginning as a strong woman, a diva. And at the same time, I was also a bit confused by what Ligiana mentioned, the fact that there was this Salve Regina in the end. And now I find myself wondering whether that Salve Regina could be a kind of your reaction to the fact that your portrayal of Manon was not well understood. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, I leave it as an open question, and I would like to hear you about it as well. It's just an opportunity to, I'm just pushing that button.
The fact is, João, the fact is that how you can do to portray like strong lady, exactly what we just said with Ligiana, if you don't change the libretto, because I have a deep respect for the text and for the music, and I think you have to deal with it. But sometimes what you can do, of course, is when it's like a short piece, like La Voix Humaine or Dido and Eneas, for example, you can add something after or before, like I did for La Voix Humaine, I mean a prologue or something afterwards. And in that case, you have a chance to respect what is written exactly, but then to add something before and after. I think that, I don't know, it interests me a lot that you two react that way for the Salve Regina, because I think it comes as a surprise as well, because I think still that there's something unnatural at the end of La Voix Humaine to go on, because it should stop, curtain, clash, blackout, je t'aime, boom. And I think the fact that it was, honestly, it seems also like in Lisbon, it was really weird because she was like that and the audience was, they were not breathing because they understood that it was not the moment to clap. But then still the energy was weird, was bizarre. But I don't know, that's something I really loved in I can't say something different than what I said to Ligiana about the spirit of the what I. João, maybe I didn't really answer to what you wanted to know.
No, it was just a curiosity. Could it be that your option regarding this new production had anything to do with you trying to avoid the fact or the options that led to your portrayal of Manon not being well understood? You see, because you.
No, you know, the thing is that also like Ligiana was asking what want the people, what they want to see and everything. And, you know, honestly, I think nowadays, I mean, it was in December we did that. Everything was like in lockdown in France and everything is closed. I think for me, it was really important to have the choir again. Because I mean, in opera, we have these incredible things that nobody else have. No, in theater, in cinema, the choir singing. And each time I'm doing something, I have a very strong relationship with the choir. Now, of course, I would be very simple and not original saying that, but for me, they are, you know, really the image of the entire society. And when you work as a director with a choir, some directors are so afraid of choir because it's suddenly like in Paris Opera, it's 100 people looking at you. And it's difficult sometimes to keep them focused or interested and everything. But of course, I think both musically and artistically, they bring something which is totally unique. And the Salve Regina for me was also like one more time, it's true that I didn't really, it was not about the exact. Oh, I can tell you something more, but it will be very specific. Livia, you were saying at the beginning when you presented myself that I assisted Patrice Chéreau on a beautiful theater play by Bernard-Marie Coltès called La nuit juste avant les forêts, which is a beautiful title, which means the night just before the forest, and which was like Bernard-Marie Coltès was a very famous French dramaturg. We did Roberto Zucco and a lot of plays. We are all the time performed. It's like a kind of classical from the end of the 20th century. And in that piece, it's the story. It's a monologue of a guy, Romain Duris, the French actor, did it with Patrice Chéreau, and I was assisting him for that. And at the end of the play, the guy was, is a guy, living in the street and like with drugs and everything. It's kind of trashy story. And at the end, he's dying on the subway station, and like the life is leaving him. And for very far in the subway station, he hears like a opera aria. And he said, I hear something coming from far. He said, a music of opera or that kind of bullshit. And that's the most beautiful thing, of course, ever. And for me, the Salve Regina was more that kind of beauty that suddenly makes you believe again. And it's maybe just because personally, when I hear the sacred music of Poulenc, it makes me believe in God, and I don't believe in God. And so I think that when someone at the end of a love story, you die somehow. In French, we say petite mort, small death, but we say the same for after a sexual act, by the way. But somehow I think when you die that way, you need maybe to connect to something higher and to something religious and something which is not you somehow. And for me, that's the quality of the Salve Regina. That's why I could really assume it and discuss during hours with you guys to prove you that I wanted to have the Salve Regina.
It could have been I Will Survive also at the end.
Exactly.
But it would be too queer for Portugal, maybe.
But I love queer, and I'm going to stage in Notte di Figaro with, of course, a very, very queer Cherubino and from the 80s style. So maybe you will have a chance. I don't know if Mr. Barenboim will allow me to ask him to sing I Will Survive, but I will let you know.
I would like to change the subject a little bit. I know we don't have so much time, but Vincent, I would like to know the fact that La Voix Humaine was streamed and had an audience there in the theater, influenced somehow your staging or the acting direction. Did you feel that at any point you had to choose between the proximity and the remote, or
Yeah, that's a big question, because like now everything is streamed, so which is for me is something really crazy, and I'm not. I mean, somehow I'm happy, because that means that we are still like we have a possibility to work, and that's fantastic. And for example, if you compare the Metropolitan Opera in New York, which canceled all the season without giving one penny, $1 to anyone, and say, okay, see you in September 21. And some other places, for example, I was supposed to do Cendrillon in the Luzerner Theater in Switzerland. It's a very small theater. They decided to pay everyone. And so that's very different. But I think the streaming, for me, it's never a good solution, because if we would create shows to be streamed, I would do some cinema. That means that everything is different. The gestures are to be smaller, the makeup to be, so it's a real problem. It's done for a stage. If not, we would be more comfortable in the studio with another lighting, with everything, another scale. So the thing is that, because I had the chance in Lisbon to have like 900 people in the audience, the 2 times where it was done, my priority is always the audience being, and for example, for the lights, because of course the streaming normally asks the light to be stronger. But when you are in the auditorium, it's too strong. And so for that case, I choose the audience. And I said that, for La Voix Humaine, it was less a problem, because as you saw, it was kind of minimalistic. There was just Marina, those 2 frames I did with the small lamps. And somehow, if you do a close-up, everything, it's not a big...
It's very interesting to see her.
So there was not a big difference, in that case.
And Manon, I remember, I think I read that it was captured. The video was done when the theater was
empty. It was a crazy story, because in France at that time we had like huge strikes, because there was like a reform for pensions and everything. So the Paris Opera stayed in strike during more than 2 months. They lost like, I don't know, 25 million euros or something like that. And so that means that our premiere was cancelled because of a strike. And that's a very French speciality. It was said at 3:30 in the afternoon, when all your friends and family came from very far. Everyone is in Paris. And at 3:30, that the premiere is supposed to be at 7 is cancelled with a strike. And so that was cancelled. Then they played one time with Prétiende, a second performance with the second cast, Amina Idris, with as well a fantastic singer. And then the Corona things were increasing very quickly, and they decided, and it was genius, to do a third and last performance filmed without audience. And I was already in Berlin rehearsing Così fan tutte, and I was sending some WhatsApp to all the singers, because they were kind of desperate and saying, how can we find the energy? Bastille Opera is a huge opera. So without audience is really scary. But they were incredible. I was so proud of what they did. Yeah. And of course, in that case, it's really better, because then it was the first show to be streamed the first day of the first lockdown in France, and so I think there were like 500,000 views of the show, which is huge for opera.
So you directed? Have you directed the caption or oriented?
No, there was but by chance I knew the guy, because we did a gala together in the Palais Garnier. We spoke together, but he understood very well the show. He called me 1 or 2 times when I was in Berlin to be sure if that or that was more important, but he did it. And I was so happy, because, sometimes I have to say, you discover your show and you're horrified, because the guy is filming systematically what is not important, and a close up on the face at the very moment where Josephine Baker is arriving, and you say, what? And that was but that was not the case. I mean, he did for me something really beautiful. That was a real consolation really for me. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. So I don't know if
Livia, Eduardo has a question. Eduardo Frim.
Okay. Frim, would you like to ask the question?
Yes.
Where are you?
One moment, please. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Hi, Ligiana. Hi, Livia. Hi, Vincent, and everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. Vincent, I was watching some videos on YouTube, some interviews of you, preparing for this meeting.
Obrigado.
And a question caught my attention is a question of the time of the staging action, right? The dramatic that you choose. You told in one of those interviews that you prefer a time unspecific. You use the word in France, dehors, out of the time, and
yes.
from Manon you choose the 20s, and now you had an explanation for in this interview, and now you told one specific why, one specific because you choose the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like to just because I have a concern of the history. If you have a specific motive to choose, if you're going to have an unspecified time of the staging, what motives your decisions about this specific question, please?
Okay. No, thank you, Eduardo, for that question, because it's very important. You know, somehow I had how could I say, a mixed experience when I did Die Frau ohne Schatten, that means the woman without a shadow, which is a huge opera by Richard Strauss that I staged in Vienna. And it was very particular because it was to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the piece, which was created exactly here at the Staatsoper in Vienna by Strauss himself and everything. And for that production, I decided as well to have, as you say, a timeless frame. That means, of course, there is always an inspiration, but you know, the set was kind of huge basaltic mountains, and the costumes were more or less, you could say, between I don't know, end of the 19th century and middle of the 20s, but it was not so clear. And I think it gave that production the quality of a kind of fairy tale. It was what I wanted to do because it's a very beautiful but very complicated story. And I think it was the right frame. But then after that, I noticed that, of course, some of the people were very happy and satisfied with that, and they found it was magical, and it was the first time they understood this impossible story to understand. But then some other people said that it was too classical somehow, and that it's also a question Ligiana was speaking about. What do you do with what the people you are living with today in the street, what they want, what maybe they expect from opera? And then I was thinking it was maybe good to do that because it was a special production but then sometimes maybe I missed something about our time, and I maybe it was not specific enough. So that you're right, that Manon was a change, and that maybe I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with the next production. But for example, now the trilogy Mozart da Ponte that I'm staging in Berlin, I'm very specific about the time, even more than for Manon. That means Così is right after the sexual revolution. I could tell you exactly the year. It will take place in 1969 in Napoli. Les Notes di Figaro that I'm starting to do next week in Berlin, it's really like, let's say, 1986. And Don Giovanni will be in 2020. So it will be very specific. So I would say that some pieces, it's better, I think, to be in a place where it's not exactly, the time is not so important. And I think to some other pieces, the opposite. You need to really bring them at a very specific moment, because as a director, I know that I have something to tell about this time. So for example, for Manon, I was very interested in the 20s because the thing was that I was thinking, okay, I can't. She's going to the couvent, to a cloister, how do you say, a monastery. And I think nowadays, nobody, maybe in Africa, or I don't know exactly in Asia, but like in Europe, nobody goes to the monastery. You know what I mean? It's no more. It's from the past, so it couldn't be today. But it was still the case in the 20s. Well, and for example, what I want to tell about about Les Noces de Figaro or Cozy, it's something about the history of sexuality. So the queer, for example, for Cherubin, Les Noces de Figaro, and something about the sexual revolution for Cozy fan tutte. So I somehow, for my narration, I need the context of those years to it brings something to my what I want to tell. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, it's because my cat, it's the time he has.
You both.
and so voilà, that depends somehow. You know, that's Eduardo, that's something kind of weird that I couldn't really explain, but I guess maybe it's if you are like a fashion designer, I would say, or someone, you know, who's creating dress for women or for men or whatever, maybe you say, okay, bring me the person who wants a dress. And so they bring you the person and you meet someone and you say, oh, I see the way you are, the way the body is, or the way, you know, if she's confident or not. And you say, I think I would do that dress for you. And you will need something very glossy or very, you know, sexy, or the opposite, something black, and that will suit you very elegantly. And I think when someone offers me to do a new piece, I have that kind of approach as well. You know, some pieces, they need to be just very carefully made and some other ones, they need to be a little pushed, and you need to bring them somewhere else. That's the way I feel.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Obrigado.
Great. So I think maybe we should now. Is there any question or no? So I'd like to thank you, Vincent, again.
Obrigado.
Thank you so much. And wish you success.
It was really a great pleasure to speak with you. And thank you so much to everyone to have prepared so well the meeting. Even if we are far, I mean, it's really a great pleasure that you took time to look at those things, and it makes me really happy.
No, thank you for your time. And also thanks everyone for coming.
Obrigado.
So
I hope that if you want, maybe I think it will be I hope it will be the 1st of April. If you want to see my queer Figaro and very located Eduardo in the 80s, I think it will be on the 1st of April on the website of the Staatsoper in Berlin.
Oh, wonderful. Great.
And I think it would be bizarre because they say to me now that on stage the singers, they have to have 3 meters between them. So for now, I don't know how I will do the scene in Act 2 where they dress up Cherubino, you know, I don't know, but we will find, I hope, some options.
You find, yeah. I'm very curious about it. So thank you, Vincent. Thanks everyone.
Obrigado.
So see you in
Obrigadissimo.
our next meeting.